RDS, of course, which stands for Relational Database Service. And this RDS is a managed service. When I say managed, that means some of the things are managed by AWS. Some of the things means, for example, let's take an EC2 instance. I'm not sharing the screen, I'll share it. I'm just explaining the concepts because we'll directly go to the console. Okay. That's okay. Okay, so what I'm telling. So let's take you have an EC2 instance. Okay. EC2 is basically a virtual machine. It's just like a server where you can install anything. You can install any application. You can also install a database engine, and you can use, see, even in your laptop, you can install a database engine, right? A MySQL or Oracle or whatever. Of course, you should be having licensing and all. That's a different thing. Okay, yeah. So, but if you go for RDS, you need not worry about the underlying hardware which is running, the underlying server. That means you don't need to worry about the EC2 instance. Even AWS uses EC2, but they will manage them. You don't manage it, actually. Okay, so we'll see more about RDS in the slides, but I'm just trying to explain you what is the difference between a normal database in a server like in EC2 or in your laptop or in our on-premises servers. Okay, and with the RDS, which is a managed service. Okay, so now we will see the steps involved in creating a relational database service. So under the services, if you can just go to RDS. I mean, of course, I opened the same thing, but I'm just showing you how do you go there, and you would be directed to a RDS dashboard. Okay. So in the left navigation, you can just go to databases. And you can create a database. Okay. So if you see the first step which you are going to select is the basically database engine. So RDS supports different database engines, like we have Aurora, we have MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, PostgreSQL, and SQL Server. Okay, so these are database engines which are supported in RDS. And if you see the MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL, these are the database engines which are supported outside also. So AWS is actually supporting the database engines in RDS because, for example, I will be using MySQL in my on-premises. Now, even if I move to cloud, I want to use MySQL only. You can go for it. RDS is supporting it the same way with other database engines. We also have an Amazon Aurora, which is AWS database. Okay, and it tells that it is 5 times throughput of MySQL and 3 times the throughput of PostgreSQL. They're compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL. Okay, so for demonstration, let me just go and click on the MySQL and go to next step. So in the first step, you have selected the engine. In the second step, you would be selecting the use case. So do you want to create a database for production or for dev and test? So we also have production Aurora because it is compatible. MySQL is compatible with Aurora. So maybe in second step, you might have changed your mind and you can go for Aurora, which is recommended because you have good performance when compared to normal MySQL. Okay, so obviously for demonstration, I would be going for the Devon test and go to next step. In the third step, you would be selecting more about the database, like what is the licensing. Okay, what is the database engine version? So in which version you want to go for it in MySQL. If you don't have any use case, I can just go for a default one. And you also have database instance class. So you have from T2 micro till M6G large. Actually, I think they have added this thing. We have till here only before a few days. They just added this thing. Okay, so you can go for at least M6G large. Okay. And next we have multi-agent deployment also. So multi-agent deployment is basically your database would be replicated in another availability zone for high availability. For example, for example, you have an application and you will have a database. Your application can be hosted in multiple servers. That's possible. Like this is an EC2 instance, this is another one, and this is another one. You have deployed your application, and all applications can talk to a single database. But your database cannot be replicated, or your database cannot be shared between multiple servers. No, you will be having only one database because, for example, if your data was shared between multiple servers, so when the user is trying to access some data, so it has to consolidate and it has to give to you. So it may take time. There might be performance issues and it's not possible practically because we will be going for relational queries where we relate tables also. So that is the reason we'll have only one database at a time. But if you enable the multi-AZ in RDS, you will be having another database. This would be the primary, but this would be just a standby. When I say standby, obviously this two databases would be in sync. Synchronously, they'll be replicating the data. Okay. And when I say standby, that means for some reason, if this primary goes down or it fails or for maintenance, then only the applications would connect to the secondary one. And this standby or the secondary will become primary now, and this would become the standby. So here in this case also, at some point of time, they're using only one database, but you have a disaster recovery kind of thing, multi-AZ. Your database would be replicated and this would be in sync. And automatically, for some reason, if this fails, automatically it will fail over to a secondary one or the standby one. So that people who are using the application or the data through application will not find any difference. They will not have any downtime because automatically it will replicate. That's what the multi-AZ deployment is basically. It creates a replica in a different zone. Okay. And you also have storage type. Obviously, I'm not selecting it because we don't. It's not under filter. Okay. And because this is database, you will have only SSDs. SSD is basically for the IOPS, input output per second. So generally, if you need a normal IOPS, you can go for a general purpose. Otherwise, you can go for provisioned one. And coming to the storage, we have 20 GB as a minimum and maximum of 65,536 GI beats, basically 65 TB. Okay. So minimum itself, you have to go for 20 GB. And the 20 GB itself is under the free tariff. You cannot go more than that. And maybe I would be creating a 20 GB of volume as of now, but later in point of time, what if my data increases? And you have a feature called auto scaling. If you enable that, even if your data crosses the volume which you defined, the database will automatically expand, automatically scales. And you can also define a threshold till how much GB I can go and expand. You can give maximum value also, but by default it is just taking 1000 GB. Okay, so this is a new feature. I mean, not very new, but yes. Before this auto scaling, no, if you want to expand or if you want a more volume size, you have to take a snapshot, create another database. When you're creating another database, you have to increase it and then terminate or delete the previous one. But now it's not like that. It supports auto scaling. Automatically it can scale. Obviously it doesn't charge you just for enabling it. If your data crosses 20 GB, it will charge us. And it is showing you the estimated cost. Okay. And in the settings, you would be giving more about your database engine details, like what is the name, my database engine, and you need to give a username and password, because in order to connect to your database engine, these are required. So I'm just giving password as password and the master name as root. And next. Oh, doesn't match. Huh? Maybe I need to correct this. I don't remember what I have given. Okay. So in the third step, we would be defining more about DB details and all. That's okay. But now, in the fourth step, now we will be defining where you want to create your database. In default VPC or the custom VPC, obviously we're creating in default VPC only. And you will be defining the subnet group. So subnet group is like selecting multiple subnets. Okay, subnet group is a collection of subnets. Okay, so if you go for multi-AZ, if you go for multi-AZ deployment, if you just select only one subnet, a subnet can be in only one availability zone. Okay, so if you just create one subnet, if two instances are in the same subnet, there might be a chance of both the databases can go down at the same time. Okay, so that is the reason you need to select a subnet group. So subnet group is a collection of subnets, and AWS would recommend to create a subnet in different availability zones, so that when if you enable the multi-AZ, your databases would be replicated in different availability zones like this, in different subnets. Okay, so that is the reason we will be defining subnet group instead of subnets. And publicly accessibility, obviously, first of all, we will not be enabling this public accessibility as yes in real time, but now we'll try to connect with the client. So that is the reason I'm just keeping it as yes. And availability zone, you can prefer in which availability zone you want it. If you don't prefer anything, it will select the best for you. And let AWS itself create a security group for me, because I don't have a security group which has 3306 port open. So 3306 is basically for the database protocol. Okay, like we have SSH for connecting to Linux instance, RDP for Windows instance. The same way for databases, we'll have 3306 port, a MySQL. Okay, and then here you would be giving the actual database which you are going to create in the database engine. Obviously, let me just keep it as blank. I would create later once I connect to a database engine, and you see the port 3306 is there. And the parameters and the option group are basically more about the hardware configuration of your DB configuration. Okay, so something like, for example, if you're a little more aware of database, you might be having some features called auto commit and all. Okay, so if you want to enable the auto commit, yes or no. Okay, So such kind of things you can do it in the parameter group, and by default we have some sort of parameter group, we can use that. And option group is basically more about taking a backups, how do you want to take the backups and all. Okay. And IAM, again, it's another service. We'll be discussing about IAM in the coming classes, maybe in the next class only. And we also have encryption. So if you want to encrypt your database, yep, you can go for it. And coming to the backup, so as soon as you create a database in RDS, every day AWS would create a backup for it for free. Yes. Every day it create an automated backup. Okay. So here you would be defining for how many days you want to keep that backup retention period. Okay. So by default, AWS creates an automated backup every day as soon as you create your RDS instance. Okay. So by default, you have 7 days. You can go for a minimum of 0 days to 35 days. But if I keep the number of days as 0, AWS will not create any automated backups because just kept as 0, right? And you also have monitoring. Obviously, CloudWatch is basically a monitoring service which will monitor all the services by default for every 5 minutes for free. But of course, if you want to go for enhanced monitoring, you can adjust the granularity from 1 second to 1 minute. And we also have performance insights. So if you want to improve the performance, yes, you can go and enable it. Okay. If you enable this performance insight, you should go for encryption for sure. You see the KMS, it's already created and all. Okay. And if you want to get the logs, for example, if someone is running some sort of queries, hitting the database engine, and some queries might take real time to retrieve it. So slow query logs or general logs, or if throws an error logs if you want to capture it. Yes, you can do it with the help of these things. You can just enable it. And also you can enable the maintenance. So AWS would allow us to enable the auto minor version upgrades. So if you enable this, AWS will go and upgrade the minor versions of your databases. And you can also define on what day, at what time, and how much duration also. For how much duration. So that at the time, AWS would, automate, or it will take care of the automation or upgradation. Okay. And if you don't prefer anything, they maybe AWS would upgrade it at its convenient time. Okay. And the last one, you can also enable the delete protection. So if you enable this, this RDS will not allow you to terminate your instance, your database instance. Okay, you have to go back and then, you have to disable it and come and delete it. Okay, so as of now, I'm not creating this database. So now what we have done, we have seen all the options which AWS is providing us to create a database. Now what we'll do, we'll try to enable the options only which are eligible under the free tier. Okay, so first of all, let me just scroll down and enable this, only enable options eligible for RDS free tier. Okay, And as soon as I come back, you see here this Aurora got disabled because Aurora is not under FreeTire. So obviously we'll go for MySQL. Let me just click on the MySQL and go to the next step. If you observe here, the second step, which is supposed to be the use case, is gone because by default it has selected Devon test environment for us under the FreeTire. Okay, and you have the same licensing and versioning model. And if you see here, this database instance class was stick to only T2 Micro. You have only one now, which is T2 Micro under FreeTire. And the multi-agent deployment got disabled. So as I said, we don't have under FreeTire. And the general purpose, the storage was stick to the general purpose one. And you see the storage, the minimum and maximum is only 20 GB under FreeTire. You cannot increase it, obviously. But it still supports storage auto scaling. That means just by enabling the auto scaling doesn't charge you. But if your storage or if your data crosses 20 GB, then it will charge you. Okay, you can still keep this. Even if you're not, or even if you are in the FreeTire. Okay. And this would remain same, just giving a name, giving a tag to this database engine. This time, let me give the correct way. Okay, so coming to the advanced settings, I would just keep everything as default VPC, subnet group, public class, yes, availability, correct. So I don't change anything. You see the encryption got disabled. Okay, and another filter, we can have a backup, but let me just keep it as 0 because it takes time to create the database itself. If I just enable this, okay, it's okay, I don't want it because we terminated as soon as we're done with this. And the monitoring got disabled automatically, and the error logs was not there. And if you observe here, the performance was not there. You see, that itself is gone because the performance needs encryption to be enabled, which is not under filter again. Okay, so for minor upgradation and all, it doesn't matter for AWS under the filter or not. But let me just disable this just to save some time. And I mean, enable deletion protection is by default disabled, but let me just disable this also and create a database now. Now I have created a database under the FreeTire. So I wanted to show you, I just want to show you what are all things which we need to go for if it is not under FreeTire. Okay. So now we have a database and it says it's creating. Okay. And it takes some time to get created. So what we'll do in that meanwhile, we'll discuss about slides. Okay. So let me just share another screen for you. IOPS performance ante correct input output per second. So మామూలుగా మనం అప్లికేషన్ నుంచి database కి కనెక్ట్ అయినప్పుడు సో త్రూ అప్లికేషన్ we will be sending request to database correct, right? So how many inputs and outputs per second? So how many requests you are sending to database? That we need to define. If it is general purpose, you'll have 16,000 IOPS, I guess. If it is provision, you'll have more IOPS, maybe 64,000. It increases. Okay, performance kosam, we will be going for IOPS or general purpose or the provisioned one. Okay, na, Ramesh? So yeah, as said, we have different types of, or two types of data. One is the structured and the other one is unstructured. Okay, so we will see the offerings from AWS for different databases. So yeah, so we will be discussing about the database layer considerations, about Amazon RDS. We will be talking about DynamoDB, and we'll also see the migration data into AWS databases. So how do we go for migrations? Okay. So when we are going for a database, or if you want to select a database, what are the things which we need to consider? First comes with the scalability. So here you would be defining or asking how much throughput actually you wanted. Okay, and will the chooser solution be able to scale up later if required? So you need to take care of the scalability. And how big your database should be. Okay, so will it need to store a GB, TB or petabytes of data? You should be taking care of the storage requirements. And also, do you want to store a simple data structures or large objects or both? And also durability. So what level of data durability you wanted, availability and recoverability. So durable ante, how far? Like if you take a phone, if you take your sandals, your slippers, how durable they are. Availability, so whenever you're accessing data, it should be available. Recoverability, for example, if there is an issue and it got failed, how fast it can recover. And of course, do regulatory obligations apply? Which will be, companies would be providing us actually. Now, as said, we have two types of databases, relational, non-relational. And we have Microsoft SQL, MySQL, Oracle, coming to the non-relational, we have MongoDB, Cassandra, Redis, and all. Coming to the relational database, so coming to the relational database type, it's basically easy to use. Yeah, because we can actually fit that data into rows and columns. We have the data integrity, reduced data storage, and common SQL language where we can query. Okay, and these relational databases are ideal for when you have a strict schema rules, do not extreme read capacity. I mean, of course, not need. Do not need extreme performance, and RDBMS can be best lowest effort solution. Okay, so when the user is trying to access the database through application, so SQL query and the response will be coming to the user. And non-relational database type benefits can be the flexibility, scalability, high performance, and high functional APIs. It's basically stores in key value or in graph. Okay, and these non-relational databases is ideal for where database must scale horizontally to handle massive data volume. So you remember when I'm talking about a relational database, you can have only one database serving the traffic. But in non-relational database, your data can be distributed in multiple servers, 1, 2, 3, so and so forth. It is scaling horizontally. When I say horizontal, you can have multiple servers having the data distributed. Data does not lend itself well to traditional schemas. Okay, and read-write rate exceeds what it can be economically supported through traditional RDBMS. Yes. So when compared to a relational database management service, the non-relational database can handle more read and writes. It can handle even if you scale horizontally, where it can actually process huge amount of data also. Coming to the relational database, which is RDS. So this RDS is a fully managed relational database service. So when you need to manage everything from the networking till the application, you will be managing it, whether you have the databases, everything running the application and all. But in EC2, if you go for EC2, till OS install, AWS or someone will manage it, or AWS manages it, the orange color one. And from OS patching, database install, software patching, backups, high availability scaling, and app optimization, you would be managing it. But in RDS, you will be managing only the database, but underlying servers, the backing ups, everything will be managed by RDS only. Adi says Kadu Pavan, it can be PaaS. You define few things, right? SaaS and Gmail. So where everything is there, you just access it. Atla. Idete IaaS, definitely. Idi PaaS. Yeah. Okay. And coming to the users and database types, so it works well for applications that have more complex data, need to combine and join data sets, need enforce syntax rules. And what are the types of database types which are supported in RDS? We have SQL, Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL, Aurora, and MariaDB. And coming to the instance sizing, we have different families. We have T family, M family, and R family. So T is basically for burstable instances, a normal one. M general purpose instances, and R memory optimized instances. Okay, and comes to sizing, we have 1 VCP to 8 VCP with some sort of RAM. And in M family, we have 2 VCP to 96. And for R family, we have 2 to 96 again. And coming to the networking performance, we have the performance is moderate here, high performance in R, M and R family. Okay, and ideal workload basically is smaller or variable. If you want more CPU power, in our family, query intensive high connection counts. And what are the highlights? This T3 can burst above the baseline for extra charge. And M5 offers up to 96 vCPU. And R5 offers up to the 96 vCPU with some sort of RAM. Okay. So according to your use case, you can actually choose any one of the family, instance family. What happened, Lakshmi Priya? Okay, no problem. Okay. So coming to the multi-AZ, which we have just discussed. So your application would be talking to the primary connection, all the time, and your primary database and your secondary or the standby will be in sync. That means if an data was updated here, uploaded here, or updated, it would be synchronously updated here also. So that for some reason, if it fails, even if it automatically fail out to the secondary, the user will not find any difference in the data because the data is same. Okay. And what are the benefits we have? Enhanced durability, increased availability, failover to standby occurs automatically. Very important. You don't see any difference at the end for the end users. Okay. So automated failover conditions whenever there is no loss of availability in the primary availability zone. If this availability zone goes down, loss of network connectivity to primary, compute unit failure on primary, or storage failure on primary, for whatever it may be the reason, or these are the reasons where when it can fail, but when it fails, you still have the second one. It's up and running. And we also have read replicas. So let's take, I have some sort of IOPS. I have enabled general or provision, whatever it may be. Let's take I have taken the provisioned only. Let's take it is taking 64,000 IOPS. But for my application, more than updates, I have a lot of reads. And if I have reached this, the maximum capacity, read capacity, what I can do is I can go and enable the read replicas. So read replica is basically a replica of your database. And this read replica is used only for reads. So when an application is trying to access the database, reads will be go to this database. Usually some reads and updates are go to this, the primary one. So that the number of hits to the primary will reduce. So the cost. Number of hits to the database or the instance also will add cost for us actually. Okay. And the primary as well as the read replica will be an asynchronous replication. So there might be a chance of a user getting an inaccurate data. Yes, because it takes time. There is a lag in getting the data updated. Okay. So this standby, the secondary is different. It's basically the secondary one, and the read replica is different. Okay. So the standby or the secondary will be in sync. Okay. And the primary and the read replica will be asynchronous. And this read replica is used only for the reads, no updates. Updates will happen to primary only. So what are the benefits we have? Enhanced performance, increased availability, and designed for security. And it's supported for MySQL, Mario, PostgreSQL, Oracle. And what are the limits we have? We can have 5 read replicas per primary. So you can have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. We have a read after write consistency. Okay. So if you have read after write consistency, to make sync, what we use? No, that's what. So by default, this read replica itself is in asynchronous. But if you want the data to be accurate, you are not supposed to use read replica. So that's why it is telling you. See, for stricter read after write, these are the limits. So for stricter read after write consistency, for example, someone was updated some sort of data into the database. Obviously, it takes some time to replicate. It will not take hours, guys. Obviously, it will not take hours. But if you immediately retrieve it, and if the data was retrieved from here, you may get an old data. Okay. But if you want a stricter read after write consistency, that means after writing, only it has to read. Then read from the primary. We are not supposed to go for read replicas. Very simple. Okay. And these read replicas can be used only when you have less updates to the database, but more reads, read intensive application. Then read replicas are applicable and it is worth to use it to improve the performance. Next comes with the RDS backup solution. So I said that as soon as you create an RDS, or as soon as you create a database instance in RDS, you would be getting the automated backups. Correct? Or if you enable the automated backups, or if you keep the retention period, AWS would create an automated backup every time. Okay. You can also create the manual snapshots or the manual backups, where you manually click on the database and then go to actions and create it and create a snapshot from it. Yes, you can do it. Okay. And whenever you take a snapshot, or the automated backups are actually stored in an S3 bucket. But this S3 bucket is basically managed by RDS only or AWS only. You will not be seeing in our S3 bucket, no. Okay. And the snapshots will be taken from the secondary if you enable the multi-AZ. Because if you want to take a snapshot, it might impact the performance. Okay, so it will just take the transaction logs from the primary. Okay, and we can go for snapshots from secondary. Okay, Teja is asking why we are going for backup if we have multi-AZ availability. See, what if the database itself was deleted accidentally? Okay, so for automatic failover, see, if something issue happened at the database, there is an automatic failover where you have a secondary. Okay, but what if the database itself was deleted, terminated accidentally, or it can be another case. Maybe you want to take a backup and store it, and you delete this instance, or I mean database instance, and create another database whenever you want it. Okay, so these snapshots are the backups. So this is not exactly like a backup, it's like an automatic failover. This is for availability. This is for the backup. Arthamainda, Teja? Okay. See, multi-AZ deployment enti ante, it is for the availability. Availability ante enti, whenever you access a Facebook application. నేను ఆల్రెడీ చెప్పాను, లైక్ ఎప్పుడన్నా మీరు మార్నింగ్ ఎర్లీ మార్నింగ్ 3 o'clock కానీ 2 o'clock కానీ, మార్నింగ్ కాదు కానీ మిడ్ నైట్ మనం ఫేస్బుక్ అప్లికేషన్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తే మీరు పొద్దున్న రండి అని చెప్తుందా? ఇది ఓపెన్ అవుతుందా? ఓపెన్ అవుతుంది. ఎందుకంటే దట్ ఈస్ అవైలబుల్ ఆల్ ద టైమ్. ఓకే, సో ఫర్ హై అవైలబిలిటీ we will be using multi-AZ. ఏంటంటే for some reason if the primary goes down, you have a automatic failover kind secondary. Okay, but these things backups are basically for the backup. I mean, ఈ snapshots backup కోసం, data backup కోసం. What if the database were instance or deleted? Okay, and you can also what if the whole region goes down? What you can do is you can actually copy the snapshot to a different region also. So even if the whole region goes down, actually your data is in this region only. So when this region is going down, you cannot access the data. So what you can do, optionally, you can copy the snapshots to this region and you spin in another database in this region. Arthamainda Teja? Why we need backups and all? Correct, Ramesh Babu. అందుకే multi-AZ multi-AZ is not under filter because a database can be created for T2 micro which is of 20 GB. Okay, so when you go for multi-AZ, your database would be creating two different availability zones. That means same configuration, everything undali kada. That means you're having two databases, you'll be paying for two. Absolutely, yes, you're paying for two. But you see the advantage. If it's a critical application, for critical application, you may need a multi-AZ deployment because you don't want to, maybe the client is very strict in making the application available all the time, all the time. Yeah. We can't access S3 bucket control by RDS. No. What we need to do is we need to copy to our buckets and then we can create an RDS from out of it. See, when I say a snapshots is controlled by RDS, they are storing in S3 bucket. Okay. You will be seeing in your RDS console. These snapshots can be seen in RDS console, not in S3 buckets. But the console or the snapshots which you're seeing in RDS console are actually stored in S3 buckets of AWS. I mean in that way. How we may communicate between two databases? Asal mere communicate avvaru. See, if you enable the multi-AZ, you will see two databases created. Okay, and you will give the endpoint. Okay, you see this. So once your database instance is ready, you click on the database and you will connect to this database with this endpoint. Okay, and you will have the same endpoint for both the databases, primary, secondary. And you'll give this endpoint in your application logic. Okay, so when you give this endpoint at the application logic, this endpoint will have two IP addresses, IP1, IP2. Okay, for you it's just one IP, but it will map to two IP addresses which is directed into two databases. So ela ante initially whenever it is you are saying primary, the request will be sent to only that. For some reason, if this fails, automatically fail over to the second one. We don't communicate with databases. You communicate only through the endpoint, and you actually save data as if you do in a single database. But the replication, everything will be taken care by AWS only. Okay, na, Ramesh? So now what we will do, yeah, let me just continue this. So as said, you can also copy the snapshots to a different region so that you can just create a database in this region also, if you want to go for disaster recovery for the whole region. Okay. Read replicas charge అవుతుంది pa. It will charge us. So coming to the Aurora, so this Aurora is a fully managed MySQL and PostgreSQL compatible relational database engine. AZs in different region possible. AZs అంటే ఏంటి? Availability zones. Availability zones in different regions ఎట్లా? Multi AZia. You mean your primary in region 1 and secondary in region 2? No, not possible. I don't think they have enabled that. Because ఇవి సింక్ లో ఉండాలి కదా. So if they are in different regions, latency issues వస్తాయి and data transfer rates are applicable. చాలా మనము జస్ట్ రీజన్స్ లాగా చూడకూడదు. ఇవి ఏంటంటే డిఫరెంట్ కంట్రీస్ లో ఉంటాయి and they are connected through network, AWS global network. So we cannot go if you ask me. Simple answer. So this Aurora is used for online transaction processing, which is OLTP. Okay. It provides 5 times throughput of MySQL asset, 3 times throughput of PostgreSQL, and it replicates data 6 ways across 3 availability zones for high availability. Okay. And requires little change to your existing application if you want to go for Aurora instead of MySQL or PostgreSQL. Okay. So now what we will do, we'll try to connect to the database. Let me just stop sharing and I'll just direct to another page. Okay. So I will share a link. I think it's there in the drive. Okay. Hemant, if you delete the content in one AZ, will that, yes, it will be deleted in another AZ also. Because they are in sync, no? Primary lo emunte, secondary lo same untadi. Okay, now. ఆగండి ఒక్క నిమిషం, నేను రిప్లికేట్ చేస్తాను. Okay. So I have this pinger link. అది కాపీ చేసుకోండి, మళ్ళీ మీరు డ్రైవ్కి వెళ్తారు కానీ. If that gives that link in the Chrome. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is, this is the database engine which we have created. Okay, now if you want to create data or upload data into this database engine, you should be having a database client. Maybe an SQL developer or Toad or something like that. Here, what we can actually do is, installing those softwares can be an overhead for us. Okay, and we need to install and do a lot of things. But so what I have done, I have just found this an extension, a Chrome extension. Okay, so it's basically a MySQL admin, where once you paste it in the Chrome, here you will be getting add to Chrome. Because I have already added, it is telling launch. Okay, so once you add this to the Chrome, what you can do, you can just open a normal Chrome browser and go to the applications here and you'll be finding the admin here, and you can click on it. And you will be directed to this a page like this. So where you will be connected to this database engine. Okay, but if you're already, if you have SQL developer or Toad in your browser or in your laptop, yes, you can use that only directly by giving the endpoint. Okay, but if you're going for the admin, or the extension which I have just shown you, you can just go through it. Okay, you can just follow the commands or the process which I will be explaining now. Now, so what you can do is you can just give a name like RDS, and here I would be giving the endpoint. So I can just copy it, the endpoint, copy, and then you can just give it here. Port is 006, and you remember you have given a username and password. You can just give the same thing here. Make sure you remember the username and the password which you have given when you are creating a database. Okay, and once you're done, you can test it, and it should be successful. If the connection was not successful, maybe you have not kept the public accessibility as yes, or you may need to check the security group also. Maybe whether it was whether it has a port called 3306 open or not. Okay, so once it is successful, you can just go and connect it. So it's basically a simple interface where you can just go to query mode directly, like this here, and you can just run the commands. So I'm not much into a database, so I would just run a query called create database RDS DB. I'm just creating a database. I'm executing it. Okay, so now I can see the database from here. I may not be able to find it. I need to just restart my machine or this one and connect it. Now I would be finding this RDSDB. Now go to query mode, and you can create tables, insert data, and do whatever you wanted. And whatever the data which you are inserting here, it will actually store in our RDS. Okay, and for example, if you have kept a public accessibility as a no, then you will not be able to connect to the database. Then you have to go to modify here, and then search for the option where you have public accessibility. Just keep it as yes, and apply the changes. Then it will take time to modify, and then once it is available, you are ready to connect to the database again. Okay, so with the help of RDS, we can actually create a database engine without knowing much about the database. You see, actually true. Before this managed service and all this thing came, you know, if you see a person, or if you know a person, if he is a database guy, you know, in organization they used to give a lot of huge respect, because he knows everything about database. If he's not there, then it's difficult to set up. And you know, and you see that each and every application will need a database, right? So almost what do you call, if you know databases, then you can work in any application, any project. But now, yeah, it was taken by someone else, like AWS and all, where we can just create a database and start using it without knowing much about it, like we have just done. Okay, so coming to the cleanup, guys, just to look into this very carefully. Don't tell me that you are charged later. When you're going for cleanup, you have to click on the database and then say actions. Chroma, ఏంలే మీకు ఒక లింక్ ఇచ్చాను కదా. ఓ సారీ, ఓకే, మీకు ఒక లింక్ ఇచ్చాను కదా జూమ్ లో, అది కాపీ పేస్ట్ చేశారనుకోండి, ఓకే కాపీ పేస్ట్ చేస్తే ఇక్కడ లాంచ్ యాప్ అని వస్తుంది, ఆర్ యాడ్ టు క్రోమ్ అని వస్తుంది ఇఫ్ యూ హ్యావ్ నాట్ ఎట్ లాంచ్డ్. ఓకే, so once you add it, you have to go to the apps and you'll find that app or that extension here. Okay, then you can open that. You would be directed to this page like this, like this. Okay, now coming to the cleanup. Click on the database and go to actions and then say delete. Okay, so here you cannot just directly just confirm it. No, it is asking, are you sure you want to delete my database instance? You can just show it, but it is telling to create a final snapshot. This is a manual snapshot. Okay, so what you need to do is, first of all, you have to disable this and acknowledge that upon deletion you don't need any backups or nothing. Then you need to give confirm it, give delete me or something like that, whatever it asks. Okay, so if you just forgot and then say delete and then you deleted it, it will create a manual backup for you, and guys, it will charge us. So when you're deleting, make sure you disable this and enable this and then say delete by giving delete me. Okay, so now if I can refresh, it says deleting. So creating and deleting takes time. That's okay, it will delete soon. Okay, any questions? Shall we just continue with our slides? We are in Aurora. Okay, so as said, Aurora is basically AWS ka database. Okay, so where it says a five times throughput of MySQL and 3 times throughput of PostgreSQL, and it replicates data in 6 ways in 3 availability zones, and of course we need to do some sort of changes if you're going for Aurora. Okay, and next we have a Redshift. This Redshift is also a relational database only, but generally this Redshift is called a warehousing service. Warehousing is basically databases ka database. It's databases ka database. For example, one sec, guys. For example, you might be having a database, you might be having an application with a database, and you're using this application from almost many years, almost 10 to 15 years. And the database which your application is actually using it, this database will not have all 10 to 15 years of data. It will have last 2 to 3 years of data only. Okay, and before years ka data would be stored in a warehouse. Yes, and that data would be useful to go for the analytics. Yes, Okay, so where we'll be doing analytics on top of the database, on that data warehousing database. Okay, so we have Redshift as a service in AWS for data warehousing service. Okay, so where you will be having huge data when compared to a normal database, which is RDS. And it's used for online analytical processing. You remember RDS is basically OLTP, online transaction processing. So when I say transactions, where you'll have inserts, inserts, updates, deletes, selects and all. But if you go for OLAP, which is analysis or analytics, where you will be doing the analytics on top of the data, so that you will see how my business was actually growing can be seen in the Redshift. You can analyze the data. Okay, and it store highly structured, frequently accessed data in the Redshift, and can also store exabytes of structured, semi-structured, or unstructured data in the S3. I'm talking about the backups. Okay, and I said that Redshift is basically a database ka database. It's a data warehousing. Okay, so when we talk about data warehousing, it might be having a huge data, right? Okay, so if you have a huge data, the performance may impact. And this Redshift uses variety of features to achieve a much faster performance compared to traditional SQL databases. Okay, so to achieve the performance, we'll see what are the features they are using. Okay, first comes with the columnar data storage. Okay, so in columnar data storage, the data is actually stored sequentially in columns instead of rows. If you see the columnar based, or let's see the column row based first of all. So you'll have a record one, you have ID, first name, last name, maybe payroll, and you'll have the details like this. It's normal. But when I say columnar data storage, actually it's stored in columns. You see? So this is the first column, and you have the ID, first name, last name, and the payroll. Okay, and this columnar based database is ideal for data warehousing and analytics. So generally, if you go for analytics and data warehousing, they use columnar based. And we also have advanced compression. So data is stored sequentially in columns, which allows for much better compression. Okay, and which takes less storage space, and Redshift automatically selects compression schema. So we have advanced compression as a second feature. And the third one is massively parallel processing. So data and query loads are distributed across all nodes. Okay, so if you have nodes, multiple nodes, and it send request to all the nodes in parallel, and you get the request and it would be sent to the application where the user would be able to access it. Okay, so they use columnar data storage, advanced compression, and massive parallel processing to improve the performance. And this is an exam. You may get a question in this topic. Okay, so please remember these things. What are the three features they were using for data or for the performance? Okay. Any questions, guys? We have 2 minutes, 1 minute only. లోడ్ బ్యాలెన్స్ అండ్ ఆటో స్కేలింగ్ మనం లాస్ట్కి డిస్కస్ చేస్తాం. లాస్ట్ టాపిక్ అదే మన ప్రాజెక్టు. Non-relational database, yes, we have DynamoDB for that. So tomorrow we will see what is DynamoDB and all. So DynamoDB is a service in AWS for non-relational database or for unstructured data. We have how many sessions on database? Maybe రేపటికల్లా అయిపోతుంది షేక్. ప్రాజెక్ట్ అంటున్నారుగా, ఇండివిజువల్ గా చేయాలా? మనం VPC అట్లా చేసాము, అట్లనే VPC కూడా ఒక ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఏపా. we will be doing two projects. One is VPC and other one is the ELB and the auto scaling. Okay, so how to import and import and export in MySQL, ma'am? Import export అంటే ఏంటి మామూలుగా? you're talking about the migration. We have migration services, Jayashree. మనం S3లో కాపీ చేసుకొని S3 నుంచి ఇంపోర్ట్ చేసుకుంటాం మామూలుగా అయితే. DB చేశాక నేనేం చేయలేదు పా, నేను కనెక్ట్ చేశాను అంతే. MySQL క్లయింట్ నుంచి కనెక్ట్ చేశాను కదా, అంతే, నేనేం చేయలేదు. ఇంటర్వ్యూ కాల్ వచ్చిందా? యా రైట్. మామూలుగా మనం VPCలో ఏం చేసాము? హౌ డు వి క్రియేట్ అవర్ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్ ఫర్ అన్ అప్లికేషన్ ఇన్ ద డేటాబేస్. ఓకే, సో అప్లికేషన్ డిప్లాయ్ చేయాలంటే విత్ డేటాబేస్, హౌ డు వి క్రియేట్ అండ్ నెట్వర్కింగ్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ ఇన్ ద ఇన్ క్లౌడ్ అనేది మనం చూసాము. అండ్ దట్స్ ఐడల్, ఎవరు చేయాలన్నా అలాగే చేస్తారు. ఓకే, స్నాప్షాట్ యూజర్స్ ఫర్ హియర్ ఫర్ RDS ఫర్ బ్యాకప్. అవును రమేష్, స్నాప్షాట్స్ ఎప్పుడైనా బ్యాకప్ కోసమే, ఇక్కడనే కాదు. ఈవెన్ యూ సీ ద స్నాప్షాట్స్ ఫర్ EC2 ఇన్స్టెన్స్, వాల్యూమ్ కి స్నాప్షాట్స్, దేనికైనా సరే బ్యాకప్ కోసమే. ఓకే, చలో చలో గైస్, bye. We'll continue this database services only from tomorrow also. We'll be discussing a little more about the DynamoDB, non-relation database. Okay, and then we'll see the data migration services also, database migration service, and we'll see some features. Then we'll wind up this, what do you call, the database services. Probably we'll try to complete it. If not, it's okay even if it extends. ఓ మీటింగ్ ఆ రోజు వరకే ఉందా? ఏం కాదు, మనకు చాలా టైం ఉంది, చేద్దాంలే. యా, దట్స్ రీజన్ ఐఎమ్ నాట్ వేస్టింగ్ టైం గైస్. మీరు RDS మీరే చేసుకోండి, మీరు నాకు పింగ్ చేయండి వాట్సాప్లో ఏమైనా ఇష్యూస్ ఉంటాయి. ఓకేనా? చలో చలో గైస్, బాయ్. సాటర్డే నాకు వేరే క్లాసెస్ ఉన్నాయి పా, అందుకే. నో ప్రాబ్లం, డోంట్ వరీ, మనం సిలబస్ అయితే అయిపోచేస్తాం, సరేనా? చాలా డేస్, ఇంకా 7 days ఉంది కదా, బోల్డ్ ఉంది మన దగ్గర. 5 days అయినా ఇట్స్ ఓకే, నో ప్రాబ్లం, విల్ కంప్లీట్ ఇట్. చలో బాయ్. యా. Have a great day. Thank you. Same to you.